You're 27 years old, and $118 million just moved because you told it to. Not physically, not in trucks, not in briefcases. It moved because you changed 4 cells in a spreadsheet. Cyprus holding, Luxembourg intermediary, Delaware acquisition vehicle, Singapore asset trust. On paper, it now belongs to a hotel chain expansion. In reality, it came from somewhere that doesn't survive daylight. And you're the reason no one can see the transition. You weren't supposed to end up here. You were the scholarship kid. Public university, top of your class, obsessively precise. Professors told you that finance was about efficiency, optimization, capital allocation, market signals. They never mentioned concealment. They never mentioned erasure. They never mentioned how powerful it feels to rewrite the origin of money. Your first job was ordinary. Junior analyst, midtown office, long hours, clean spreadsheets. You noticed things other analysts didn't. Routing inefficiencies, tax vulnerabilities, jurisdictional loopholes. At 25, you redesigned a holding structure for a client and saved them $14 million in exposure. That's when they noticed you. Not recruiters, not banks. People who don't advertise. The invitation wasn't dramatic. No secret meeting, no threats, just a quiet dinner. Private room. No recording devices allowed. Phones placed in a velvet-lined box. The man across from you didn't talk about crime. He talked about friction. Capital, he said, shouldn't be slowed down by political inconvenience. He asked if you could remove friction. You said yes. Because at that point, it still sounded abstract. Your first assignment felt like a puzzle. 6 shell companies, 4 jurisdictions, circular ownership, layered directors. Your instruction, make it look ordinary. Ordinary. That word echoes in your head even now. Because illegal is obvious, illegal is loud, ordinary is invisible, and invisible is powerful. You build the route carefully. Cyprus to Luxembourg to British Virgin Islands to Delaware. Consulting invoice, intercompany loan, asset-backed instrument, equity reinvestment. By the end, $84 million looks like revenue from renewable energy. You lean back in your chair. You feel something new, not fear, not guilt, control. You can alter reality. You can decide what money remembers. That's intoxicating. The money scales quickly. At 26, you're moving tens of millions. At 27, hundreds. By 29, billions circulate through layered entities that only exist because you drew them into existence. Real estate portfolios, energy infrastructure, private equity stakes, luxury development projects. On paper, it's an empire of clean investments. Underneath, it's velocity. And velocity hides everything. The first crack appears quietly. A transaction freezes, not the largest one, just one. $22 million flagged under enhanced compliance review. You stare at the notification. Your heart doesn't race. It slows. Because panic creates mistakes, and mistakes create trails. You trace it backward. Entity C to advisory D to offshore E. The routing is flawless, or was. You discover the problem. The regulator upgraded its anomaly detection model. AI-driven, cross-border behavioral mapping. It noticed timing irregularities. You weren't being chased by humans anymore, you were being scanned by machine. And machines don't get tired. That night, you don't sleep. You rebuild 3 layers, add complexity, add delay, add misdirection. You reroute exposure through Singapore, convert liquidity into debt instruments, split the flow into 14 smaller transfers across 5 days. Within 48 hours, the freeze lifts, crisis avoided. But something irreversible happens. You realize you're not just laundering money, you're competing against governments. At 30, you attend your first high-level strategy session. Private boardroom, no raised voices, no visible weapons, just calm discussion about jurisdictional safety. They speak in numbers, in percentages, in exposure ratios. They don't ask if you can do it, they ask how fast. You realize something chilling. You're not cleaning money, you are stabilizing power. Without clean capital, influence collapses. Without liquidity, alliances fracture. Without you, the machine suffocates. And then comes the word redundancy. They're bringing in a second accountant. Backup, they say. Scalability, you smile, but you understand mathematics. If A can replace B, then B is optional. Optional becomes expendable under pressure. You start noticing subtle shifts. Emails you're not copied on. Parallel structures built without your review. Alternate routing experiments. You train them too well. Your personal life shrinks. You can afford anything. Hudson View apartment, private car service, last-minute international travel, but You can't explain your work to anyone, not your girlfriend, not your parents, not your friends from university. You exist in two versions, the visible consultant and the invisible artery of a financial organism that survives on secrecy. At 32, the real scare hits. A partner entity receives a formal inquiry from a European regulator. Not a raid, not an arrest, an inquiry, which means suspicion without proof. The boardroom is quieter than usual. One phrase repeats twice. Exposure must be contained. Contained. You understand the subtext. If someone must absorb liability to protect the structure, it won't be the investors, it won't be the negotiators, it will be the architect. That night, you open the master file. $2.4 billion circulating through layered entities. Every connection optimized, every weakness mapped. It's elegant, it's terrifying. Because if two regulators cooperate, if one journalist connects shell directors, if one internal email leaks, your brilliance becomes evidence. You try to imagine leaving, resigning, teaching finance, consulting legally, living without scanning headlines for compliance updates. But departure isn't neutral. You know too much. Routes, vulnerabilities, jurisdictional pressure points. Knowledge isn't power here, it's leverage. And leverage makes you dangerous. Dangerous people aren't released, they're neutralized. The inquiry fades, the regulator closes the review. No charges, no escalation. Crisis survived, but something changes inside you. You saw how quickly contingency plans activated without you. Alternate accountants, parallel entities, pre-built sacrifice routes, the machine prepared to survive your removal. That realization doesn't leave. At 33, you fully understand the hierarchy. Security enforces, executives negotiate. You preserve liquidity. Without clean money, there is no empire. Without liquidity, there is no leverage. Without you, the machine slows. But if sacrificing you preserves the structure, the math is simple. And math always wins. One night, alone in your apartment, city lights reflecting off the glass, you open the master spreadsheet again. You control billions, but you don't control your exit. You can move capital across borders in hours, but you can't move yourself out of the system without destabilizing it. You traded anonymity for precision, freedom for influence, normalcy for scale. You thought you were building financial architecture. You were building a cage. You are not the face of the empire. You are its bloodstream, invisible, essential, replaceable, and permanently one regulatory shift away from becoming the liability it needs to erase. Next time, your life inside a hedge fund that quietly moves markets, because sometimes the most dangerous power is perfectly legal.